Devin Choules, founder and CEO of Choules Financial. On this week's Life of Yes, we wanted to take a minute and go through risk inside of retirement and what that means to you and why we should look at de-risking and changing our philosophy on how things work and what our assets are actually doing for us once we cross that line and we're no longer working. So why you need to review your portfolio before retiring has a lot to do with the outcome that you're going to get. So if you have a pen, you have a paper, please pull it out. There's going to be some opportunities for you to take some notes, gain some information out of this. So the first thing we're going to talk about is why de-risking matters and what it means and what it is. Retirement changes the way you think about risk. While you're still working, you worked through the financial crisis of 2008. You would go back to 2001 through the tech collapse as well. At that point in time, chances are you were still working and that did not impact you. While the market, your account potentially went down 50% both those times or so, and it was very painful, you did not need that money to live on. And so it did not have the same impact. It was mentally tough, but what we want to avoid inside of retirement is not only being a mental drain, but actually putting limitations on the life that we can live, the amount of yes that we can say, fill our cup, make us feel alive. So big market swings can have huge impacts inside of retirement. If we look at that and our portfolio goes down by 50% like it did in early 2000 and then 2007, 2008, with the 50% drawdown, the likelihood of us ever surviving without having to make substantial changes to the amount of income that we can live on goes down significantly. If we're taking out 5% a year, if you just did a very simple piece, if you have 100% of your money, you have it hiding underneath your mattress. Now, we're not going to include any inflation, anything like that right now, but just for simple math purposes, we know that at 5%, that takes 20 years to spend that money. We lose 50%, that's only 10 years inside of that, assuming the market comes back. And so what we look at inside of that is now that we have to live on it, we don't want to have to make the choice of whether we go back to work, whether we reduce our lifestyle. But inside of this is building that proactive plan of how our investments support our income. Because I don't know if you know this or if anybody has told you that when it comes to your portfolio in retirement, it's really only good for two things. Okay? First one is to support that income that you've always dreamed of being able to do, being able to say yes to life. Income makes life possible. It allows you to be with your loved ones and do the things that you love with them. It allows you to go on those trips that you've always planned. It allows you to eat at your favorite restaurants. It allows you to live that best version of retirement you've always dreamed of. So really, our investments are the fuel that drives our income. And when we hit retirement, instead of focusing so much just on our investments, while it's important, we want to make sure that our investments actually support our income. So strategic planning equals financial peace of mind. If we have a written retirement income plan, if we have things put together, we take it, we put it in our yes binder, we have it written, we have it documented. This is where we're going to take income from. This is where our dry powder is to say of if the market goes down 50%, where can we live for 5 years to make sure that it recovers? Making sure that we have the proper allocation and balance inside of our portfolio is very, very pivotal when it comes to retirement. Risk versus security. What are the risks that you can plan for? Market risk, investment losses due to market volatility. The only thing we can control in the entire market cycle is how much volatility or how much risk of loss we have inside of our portfolio. We can't force the market to go up. We can't control when it goes up, but we can put parameters in place to control how much it goes down and how much exposure theoretically we have. Sequence of returns risk. Poor returns earlier in retirement can derail your plan. If you were the lucky investor and you retired about 2011, all of your money was made back from the two financial crises prior to that. And then you went into the longest running bull market in the history of the stock market. It has basically gone up and to the right for about 14 years from then. And inside of that, you were the lucky investor or lucky retiree. You've been able to take out your income. You haven't had to have much thought about the risk or the volatility inside of it. But if you were the unlucky retiree that retired around 2000 and you lost 50% of your money, and a lot of people went back to work, or you had to decide if you wanted to live on less, and you finally recover, you get out to 2007, you're having strong gains again, you feel positive about things, lose 50% again. That scenario inside of it is the sequence of early returns up front lead for a stronger retirement, and big losses upfront lead to a less satisfactory outcome. So it's very, very important to control the one thing we can, and that's the amount of volatility or exposure we have inside of the market. Inflation risk, rising prices erode purchasing power. Too often, most people keep all of their money in the same stocks and mutual funds and ETFs that they've used their whole life because they look at it and say, hey, if I just grow my money, I'll be okay. Now, those pieces are a really good way to help outpace inflation and make sure that your purchasing power works, that you have the ability to spend the same amount of value every year throughout retirement. But that's all that does. When we have money in the what I call the growth bucket, when we have it over in those stocks, ETFs, and mutual funds, there's two things it can be good for. It can be good to help offset inflation, which is fantastic. We support that. No problem at all. But the other piece is it's really only good for legacy. Because if we're not going to spend it on income, we're not going to spend it on inflation, we're not getting out of this alive, we can't take it with us. That's really what it's for. And this is why we're talking about de-risking and changing the way we view our portfolio as we enter retirement. Hey, transitioning from aggressive growth to a more balanced approach. This doesn't mean that we're taking it and we're saying, hey, we never want to make any money. This is looking at it and building a plan that allows us to survive through any market cycle. That when we look at it, we call it our safety, income, and growth, that there's three areas that if we put our money, we're going to have a higher chance of success inside of retirement and have the best version financially if we get that equation correct of how much do we have in our safety bucket. Now, when it comes to income, again, income is what makes life possible. It's not just, I've got a pension, I've got Social Security. If there's more things that you want to do, or mentally you know that you can't lose that money because it'll hurt you too bad, that goes in the income bucket. And then again, with growth, it's only good for inflation and for legacy. So with that, we're looking at prioritizing income stability and principal protection. There should absolutely be a portion of your portfolio that allows you to get through any market cycle. When we look at it, there's really never been a time that over a 5-year period, whatever the drawdown's been, that the market really hasn't come back in some form. So we want to make sure that we have our money allocated accordingly to allow us the best chance of success of making our money back and surviving, and not only surviving, but thriving inside of retirement. Building a portfolio plan that matches your retirement timeline. Inside of it, whether that's you're retiring early or whether you have longevity and you're going to live a long time, we need to take those things into consideration of how much risk we should take to make sure that it supports our income. I think I've said it a few times now, but our investments support our income. It's not the other way around, that our income is what drives our portfolio decisions. Okay? We want to make sure that we're not making decisions on watching the numbers go up for no reason. We want those numbers to go up to support our income. What is not de-risking is going to 100% to cash. You get scared inside of the market. You go, hey, there's a trade war going on. There's coronavirus. There's a debt crisis. And we go all the way to cash. That is not de-risking. That is an emotional move that does not set us up for success. Avoiding all market exposure. Again, leaving it all in cash, taking it and sticking it in the mattress, putting it in the safe, putting it in a money market account that doesn't pay enough to keep up with inflation. That's not de-risking. Making emotional reactive decisions. Dalbar did a study and they found that somebody who goes it alone inside of retirement when they invest, on average, makes about 3 to 4%. While those who use an advisor that helps with their investments to help control those emotional decisions and building that plan that actually works is closer to a 7 to 8% return, simply based on managing emotions alone. So de-risking is not just jumping out just because we can. There's no one-size-fit-all formula. So when people come in to work with us, that safety, income, growth formula that I was talking about, it's different for each and every person. Do you have a pension? Do you have Social Security? Do you want to spend a lot in retirement? Do you want to spend a little in retirement? Is legacy your main goal? Is healthcare your goal? And so we will build a plan that is very specific to each and every person. It's not a one-size-fit-all. And if it is where you're at, please take the time to make sure that you have that reviewed by somebody else. Your risk tolerance, timeline, and income needs matter. Inside of this, again, making sure that we know how long, theoretically, we know how long you're going to live. What does your health look like? Are you diabetic with, 3-time cancer survivor and you've had 2 heart attacks? Or, hey, do you know what? Or do you go to CrossFit in your 70s and you run and you're very active and you hike and you take care of yourself in that aspect? And we know that, hey, my mom lived to be 105. Well, great. Well, we should probably plan on you living to be 105. If you're doing all those things at 70, you've got longevity in there. We need to make sure that everything supports you specifically. We build a tailored strategy and adjust it to life's changes. It doesn't matter how good the plan is today. We can't see the future. Things change, and that's why we encourage our clients to review with us at least semi-annually, annually, to make sure that as life changes, when they tell us, oh, we needed to buy a car, the house or the roof leaked, mom and dad passed away, left us an inheritance, oh, one of the kids needed some help with money, we take that and we need to take that and compute and put together and model what things look like for you to make sure that we're making the most informed decision. Are you sure that all 5 of your areas inside of retirement are taken care of? That today we talked about our investments, but we know our investments support our income. And when we have that income, we have taxes on that income. Do we have a proactive tax plan? Do we have a healthcare plan that lets us know how we're going to get through this life financially as easily as possible as it gets expensive to age? And lastly, with our estate plan or our legacy inside of here is making sure that it goes to the right people as efficiently as possible and that we have everything set up. With that, that's this week's Life of Yes. Thank you so much. As always, like, click, subscribe, and we'll talk to you next week.